The Prometheus Dawn drifted through the darkness of space, its massive hull scarred by 2 centuries of travel. Inside the bridge, Commander Rebecca Matthews pressed her palm against the cold viewport, watching the distant sun grow brighter with each passing hour. So, home. After 200 years away, they were finally returning to Earth. Something's wrong, Lieutenant Thomas Grant said from his station. His fingers moved rapidly across the holographic display, pulling up calculations that made his face go pale. Commander, you need to see this. Rebecca turned away from the window. Behind her, the bridge crew worked quietly at their stations. 8,000 people lived on this ship. 8,000 souls who had left Earth expecting to build a new world at Kepler 442b. 8,000 people who had failed. What is it, Thomas? The time dilation calculations. They were off. Way off. He swallowed hard. We thought we'd been gone for 800 years Earth time. But the gravitational fields we passed through, the cryosleep cycles, the course corrections near that neutron star binary. Commander, it's been 12,000 years. The words hung in the air like a physical thing. Rebecca felt the deck shift under her feet, though she knew the artificial gravity was perfectly stable. 12,000 years. Everyone they had known was gone. Every government, every nation, every friend and family member who had waved goodbye at the launch ceremony. All of it was ancient history now. Are you certain? She asked quietly. Triple-checked. The star positions don't lie. Neither does the decay rate of our calibration beacons. We've been gone for 12 millennia. Dr. Michael Peters, their chief scientist, stood up from his station. His hands were shaking. That's impossible. Earth might not even exist anymore. Civilizations fall. Planets die. We could be returning to ruins. Or nothing at all, added Lieutenant Emma Clark from Communications. She was young, barely 30, and had been born on the ship during the journey. Earth was just a story to her, a paradise she had never seen. Maybe humanity is just gone. Then we find somewhere else, Rebecca said, forcing strength into her voice that she didn't feel. We've survived this long. We'll survive whatever we find. But inside, her heart was breaking. She had left behind a daughter, 5 years old, who had begged her not to go. That little girl would have lived and died thousands of years ago. Commander, Emma said suddenly. I'm picking up transmissions. Lots of them. Radio, lasercom, quantum channels. The entire Sol system is lit up with traffic. Someone survived, Michael breathed. Show me the system scan, Rebecca ordered. The main view screen flickered to life, and Rebecca felt her breath catch in her throat. The Sol system was unrecognizable. Jupiter looked strange, lopsided, as if someone had carved away a portion of the gas giant. Saturn's rings glowed with millions of tiny lights. Mars blazed with illumination. Every planet, every moon, every major asteroid had structures orbiting it. Massive ring habitats. Station complexes larger than cities. Engineering on a scale that seemed impossible. My God, whispered Thomas. They didn't just survive. They conquered the solar system. I'm trying to translate the transmissions, Emma said, her voice tight with concentration. None of it matches our language databases. Not English, not Mandarin, not any Earth language we know. It's like they invented completely new ways to speak. A warning alarm blared across the bridge. Multiple contacts. Thomas shouted. 12 ships approaching fast from Neptune's orbit. They're pulling 50 Gs of acceleration. Nothing human-built could survive that. Battle stations, Rebecca ordered, though she knew it was pointless. If those ships wanted them destroyed, the Prometheus Dawn wouldn't last 10 seconds. Their weapons were 200 years old. Their shields were designed to stop micrometeorites, not military fire. The ships appeared on the view screen. They were beautiful. Sleek silver teardrops that moved through space like fish through water. They surrounded the Prometheus Dawn in a perfect formation, matching speed with an ease that made Rebecca's stomach turn. Whoever built these ships was far, far beyond anything humanity had been capable of when she left. They're hailing us, Emma said. Audio and visual. Commander, they're speaking English. Old English. Our English. Put them through. The screen changed, and Rebecca found herself staring at a face that was almost human but not quite. The features were too smooth, too perfect. The eyes were too large and had an unusual shimmer to them. The skin had an opalescent quality, like pearl. But the smile was warm and genuine. Prometheus Dawn, the being said, and its voice was melodious, almost musical. Welcome home. We have waited so very long for originals to return to the cradle. Rebecca found her voice. Who are you? I am Ambassador William of the Nepturian Collective. The being's smile widened. We are humanity's children, Commander Matthews. In the 12,000 years you have been gone, humanity has changed. We have spread to 10,000 worlds. We have evolved, adapted, and created new life. Some of us are still baseline human. Others, like myself, were uplifted by humanity or shaped by the worlds we inhabit. He paused, and his expression became almost reverent. But you are originals. True humans from the age of expansion. You are living history. Living legends. Rebecca looked around at her crew. 8,000 people who had left Earth as explorers and pioneers. 8,000 people who had just become relics of a forgotten age. What happened to Earth? She asked. Earth endures, William said softly. Preserved and sacred. The Galactic Assembly wishes to honor your return. Please, allow us to escort you home. You have been away too long, and there is so much you need to see. The transmission ended, and Rebecca was left staring at her reflection in the dark screen. Behind her, the crew sat in stunned silence. They had come home expecting to find Earth struggling or thriving, grown older by 1,000 years. Instead, they had found something impossible. Something wonderful and terrifying. Humanity had become something far greater than they had ever imagined. And somehow, impossibly, they had been waiting. Commander? Thomas asked quietly. What do we do? Rebecca straightened her shoulders and looked out at the transformed solar system, at the silver ships waiting patiently for their response. We accept their escort, she said. And we find out what happened to our species while we were sleeping among the stars. The journey from Neptune's orbit to Mars took 3 weeks. Rebecca had insisted they travel slowly, giving her crew time to adjust to what they were seeing. Every day brought new impossibilities. The silver ships guided them through the outer system. At each stop, Ambassador William showed them what humanity had become. The asteroid belt was no longer a scattered field of rocks. Instead, thousands of massive rotating habitats floated in perfect formation, connected by streams of light that William called quantum tunnels. Billions of people lived there, he explained. Not all of them were human anymore. What do you mean, not human? Rebecca asked during one of their daily briefings. William's opalescent face remained kind. Humanity changed itself, Commander. When we spread to different worlds, we adapted. Some changes were small. Others were significant. But all of us carry human DNA. All of us remember Earth as our birthplace. The first real shock came at Europa. The moon's icy surface was covered with enormous domed cities that glowed with blue-green light. When Rebecca's team went down to visit, they met the Europans. They looked like seals that had been given human intelligence and hands. They moved through water-filled corridors with grace, their large eyes watching the visitors with curiosity. We were human once, their leader said through a translation device. His name was Marcus, he explained, named after an ancient Earth explorer. 5,000 years ago, our ancestors chose to live in Europa's ocean. Generation by generation, we changed. Now the water is our home. But we remember the stories of Earth. We remember we came from the cradle. Private David Cooper, who had come down with the landing party, looked sick. This is wrong, he muttered to Rebecca. They're not human anymore. They're something else. They think they're human, Rebecca replied quietly. Who are we to say they're not? But Mars was different. Mars made everything more complicated. The red planet blazed with light as they approached. Cities covered the surface from pole to pole. 40 billion people lived there, William said. And most of them were baseline human. People who looked exactly like Rebecca and her crew. The landing in New Olympus was overwhelming. Thousands of people lined the streets, held back by barriers of shimmering light. They cheered and cried as the crew of the Prometheus Dawn walked down the ramp. Some reached out desperately, trying to touch them. Security personnel in sleek armor kept them back. Why are they acting like this? Rebecca asked William. Because you are originals, he said simply. You are from the first age. You knew Earth before it was preserved. You remember the real expansion, not the stories we teach our children. To them, you are saints walking among mortals. A woman broke through the barrier and fell to her knees in front of Rebecca. She was crying, her hands clasped together. Please, she begged. My grandmother told me stories her grandmother told her, stories passed down from the first age. Are they true? Did humans really build the first ships with metal and chemical fuel? Did we really not know if we would survive? Rebecca helped her stand. Yes. It's all true. We didn't know anything. We were just hoping we'd make it. The woman touched Rebecca's face gently, as if she were made of glass. You're real, she whispered. The legends are real. That night, the Martian government held a ceremony in their honor. Rebecca stood on a stage before millions watching in person and billions more across the system. An elderly man approached her. His name was Governor Richard, and he was pure baseline human, unchanged from what humanity had been 12,000 years ago. We chose to stay as we were, he explained. Many of us did. We live on Mars, on Earth's moon, in the orbital habitats around Venus. We are the unchanged. We wanted to remain close to what humanity was. Why? Rebecca asked. Because someone needs to remember, Richard said. Someone needs to stay connected to the beginning. But even we have lost so much. Our history is 12,000 years long. We know dates and facts, but we don't know what it felt like. We don't know what people really thought or feared or dreamed. He looked at her with intensity. But you do. You remember the real Earth. You remember when humanity didn't know if it would survive reaching the stars. Dr. Helen Foster, their cultural specialist, pulled Rebecca aside after the ceremony. Her face was troubled. Commander, we need to talk about the offers. What offers? Several factions have approached me. They want to help us integrate into modern society. Genetic modifications to extend our lives. Cybernetic enhancements to let us access their networks directly. Neural upgrades so we can understand their technology. Helen's voice dropped. They are offering to change us into something that can function in their world. Rebecca felt cold. They want to update us like we're old software. Some see it that way. Others genuinely want to help. But Commander, there's another group. Scientists and historians who are begging us not to change. They say our memories, our experiences, our way of thinking, it's all priceless exactly as it is. We're the only true witnesses to the beginning. Back on the Prometheus Dawn, the crew gathered in the mess hall. Arguments broke out immediately. Lieutenant Emma Clark stood on a table, shouting to be heard. We should accept the modifications. Why stay limited when we could live for centuries? Why stay ignorant when we could understand their technology? Because then we won't be us anymore. David Cooper shot back. We'll be them. Just another updated human variant. What makes us special is that we're unchanged. What makes us special is that we're obsolete, someone else yelled. We're antiques. Museum pieces. Rebecca watched them fight and felt the weight of impossible choices settling on her shoulders. Michael Peters sat beside her, looking exhausted. What are you going to do? He asked. I don't know, she admitted. We came home expecting to find Earth older but recognizable. Instead we found a galaxy that worships us but has no place for us. We're too primitive to function in their society, but too valuable to ignore. Some of the crew want to accept updating, Michael said quietly. Some want to refuse and preserve what we are. And some. He hesitated. Some want to reject this entire civilization and find somewhere untouched to settle. That's 3 different futures, Rebecca said. Maybe that's okay, Michael replied. Maybe humanity's real achievement isn't that they conquered the galaxy. Maybe it's that they built a civilization diverse enough to give us the choice. Through the viewport, Mars glowed beneath them. Somewhere down there, 40 billion humans lived lives Rebecca couldn't begin to understand. And somewhere in the galaxy, 10,000 worlds held variations of humanity she hadn't even seen yet. They were gods to these people. Living legends from a mythical age. But Rebecca had never felt more lost in her entire life. Ambassador William is taking us to Earth next, she said finally. Maybe when we see the homeworld, we'll know what to do. Michael nodded slowly. Or maybe we'll just have more impossible choices. Rebecca looked out at the stars and wondered if coming home had been a mistake. But it was too late now. They were already heroes. Already legends. Already trapped between what they were and what they might become. Earth appeared on the view screen like a blue jewel against the black of space. Rebecca felt tears running down her face before she even realized she was crying. After 200 years away, after 12,000 years of Earth time, the homeworld still looked beautiful. But something was wrong. Population scan shows only 10 million people, Thomas reported, confusion in his voice. That can't be right. Earth should have billions. Ambassador William's face appeared on the communication screen. His expression was gentle, almost apologetic. Earth is preserved, Commander. It is no longer a world where humanity lives in great numbers. It is something far more precious now. What does that mean? Rebecca demanded. Come down and see. The Guardians are waiting for you. The shuttle descended through clouds toward what the database said should be London. Rebecca remembered London from history files. 30 million people had lived there when the Prometheus Dawn launched. Towers of steel and glass reaching toward the sky. Underground trains carrying millions every day. The heart of an empire that had lasted centuries. But as they broke through the clouds, Rebecca saw only green. Rolling hills covered in grass and ancient forests. Rivers running clean and clear. In the distance, a small village of wooden buildings nestled beside the Thames. Perhaps 10,000 people lived there. No more. Where is the city? Helen whispered beside her. Where did London go? They landed in a meadow filled with wildflowers. A woman waited for them, elderly and dressed in simple brown robes. Her face was weathered but kind. She smiled as Rebecca stepped off the shuttle. Welcome home, Original. I am Guardian Patricia. I have waited my whole life to meet someone from the first age. Where is London? Rebecca asked. The question came out harder than she intended. Patricia's smile didn't fade. Gone. Carefully deconstructed 8,000 years ago. Recycled. Returned to the earth. Come, walk with me. I will explain. They walked through the meadow toward a hill overlooking the valley. The air smelled clean, like rain and growing things. Birds sang in the trees. In the distance, Rebecca could see herds of animals grazing. Deer, perhaps. Or something that had once been deer. When humanity spread to the stars, Patricia began, we built cities on 10,000 worlds. We created habitats in space that held billions. Mars alone became home to 40 billion souls. The asteroid belt holds 100 billion more. Humanity numbered in the trillions, spread across the galaxy. Then why is Earth empty? Rebecca interrupted. Because Earth became something more important than a home, Patricia said quietly. It became a memory. A reminder of where we began. She gestured at the valley below. 7,000 years ago, the Galactic Assembly made a decision. Earth would be restored to its natural state. All the cities would be removed. All the pollution cleaned. All the damage repaired. Earth would become what it was before humanity changed it. You destroyed our civilization, David Cooper said. He had followed them up the hill, his face red with anger. You erased everything we built. We preserved everything, Patricia corrected gently. Every building was recorded in perfect detail before deconstruction. Every street, every home, every artifact. You can visit virtual London anytime you wish. You can walk through ancient Rome or medieval Beijing or the Mars colonies before the terraforming. All of it exists in the archives. But here, on Earth, we chose to keep something more valuable than buildings. What could be more valuable than our history? Rebecca asked. Patricia knelt and touched the grass. Life, Commander. Pure, untouched life. Earth is the only planet in the galaxy that evolved naturally. Every other world humanity lives on was either terraformed or was already lifeless. Earth is unique. So we made it sacred. 10 million guardians maintain it. We allow pilgrims to visit. Billions come every year from across the galaxy to see the cradle. To walk on the soil that birthed humanity. To remember where we came from. Rebecca looked out at the valley. Somewhere beneath this peaceful meadow lay the London she had known from history. Erased. Made holy. That evening, the Guardians gathered the crew of the Prometheus Dawn in an ancient stone circle. Thousands of people from across the galaxy had come to witness this moment. Humans of every variety. The tall, thin ones adapted for low gravity. The short, stocky ones built for heavy worlds. Winged humans from the atmospheric cities of Saturn. Water breathers from Europa. And the unchanged, baseline humans like Rebecca who had chosen to stay as they were. Guardian Patricia stood before them. You have traveled far and returned to a home you no longer recognize. We understand this is difficult. The Galactic Assembly offers you 3 choices. She raised one finger. First, you may accept updating. Genetic modification, cybernetic enhancement, life extension. You may join modern galactic society as full citizens, changed but capable of understanding and using the technology around you. She raised a second finger. Second, you may remain here on Earth, unchanged. You would become living historians, teaching pilgrims about the First Age. Your memories and experiences would be recorded and preserved. You would live out your natural lives as honored guests of the Guardians. She raised a third finger. Third, you may request your own world. The Assembly will grant you an untouched planet at the galaxy's edge. You may settle it however you wish, using modern tools but building your own society. You would be independent, free to choose your own path. The silence that followed was heavy. Rebecca looked at her crew. 8,000 people, all hearing three impossible futures. The argument started that night and continued for days. The crew divided into angry factions. In the mess hall, Emma Clark shouted at David Cooper. You want to stay primitive? Fine. But don't force the rest of us to give up the chance at real-life extension and understanding. They want to erase who we are. David shouted back. Turn us into something new. I'd rather die as myself than live forever as someone else. Michael Peters tried to calm them. Both choices have value. Some of us should preserve what we were. Others should embrace what we could become. And what about the third choice? Helen asked. Our own world. A fresh start. Running away, someone muttered. No, Rebecca said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. Not running away. Moving forward. Isn't that what humanity has always done? She walked to the viewport and looked down at Earth, green and clean and sacred. We left Earth as explorers. We failed at Kepler 442b. The colony didn't survive. We came home as failures expecting to be welcomed back or forgotten. Instead we find ourselves worshipped as living legends. She turned to face them. But we're not legends. We're people. And people need to choose their own path. The Assembly is wise to offer us three choices because we're not one united group anymore. We're 8,000 individuals with 8,000 different needs. So we split up? Thomas asked. We choose, Rebecca said. Each of us. Whatever feels right. The vote came 1 week later. Patricia stood before them with the results. 3,000 have chosen updating. 2,000 have chosen to remain on Earth. 3,000 have chosen independence. Rebecca had voted for independence. So had Michael, Helen, David, and Thomas. 3,000 people who wanted to build something new, something that honored both the past and the future without being trapped by either. The Assembly grants you the world of New Genesis, Patricia announced. It orbits a yellow star at the galaxy's edge. Untouched. Unclaimed. Yours to shape. The next days were painful. Families divided. Friends said goodbye. Rebecca stood with Emma Clark, who had chosen updating. The young woman hugged her fiercely. I want to see everything, Emma whispered. I want to live long enough to understand this galaxy. I hope you understand. I do, Rebecca said. I hope you find what you're looking for. She watched Emma board a shuttle to the processing centers. Then she watched another shuttle carry Michael's colleagues to Earth, where they would become teachers and historians. And finally, she boarded her own shuttle with 3,000 others who had chosen the third path. As they lifted off, Rebecca looked down at Earth one last time. Green and peaceful. Sacred and empty. It was beautiful. But it wasn't home anymore. Home was wherever they chose to build it next. The week between the announcement and the final vote was the longest of Rebecca's life. The crew of the Prometheus Dawn fractured into 3 camps, each convinced they held the right answer to an impossible question. Rebecca spent her days walking through the preserved wilderness of Earth, trying to understand what she felt. On the third day, Guardian Patricia took her to a place that made her stop breathing. This was your home, Patricia said softly. They stood in a valley in what had once been North America. A small stone marker rose from the grass. Rebecca knelt and read the inscription, Seattle. Population 4.2 million. Deconstructed year 4837 of the expansion. Preserved forever in memory. My daughter lived here, Rebecca whispered. Emma. She was 5 when I left. She begged me not to go. Her hands shook as she touched the cold stone. She died 12,000 years ago. Everyone I knew died 12,000 years ago. And you erased even the buildings that would have remembered them. We didn't erase them, Patricia said. We transformed them. Every brick of Seattle exists in the archives. Every photograph, every voice recording, every trace of the people who lived here. Your daughter's life is recorded. Her children's lives. Every generation down to today. Would you like to see? Rebecca wanted to say yes. But she shook her head. If I see what she became, if I see her children and grandchildren spread across 12,000 years, I'll never be able to let go. I'll spend the rest of my life living in the past. Patricia nodded with understanding. That is why some choose to remain on Earth. To be guardians of memory. But you have already decided differently, haven't you? I don't know, Rebecca admitted. But that night, she met someone who changed everything. The woman was 7 feet tall with golden skin and eyes that seemed to glow faintly in the darkness. She waited outside Rebecca's quarters on the Guardian compound. When she spoke, her voice was deep and musical. Commander Matthews. My name is Jennifer. I am your descendant. Rebecca stared. How many generations? 43. I traced my genetic line back to your daughter Emma. She had 3 children. Those children had children. The line continued, branched, spread across multiple worlds. I was born on Titan, but I chose modification for high-gravity worlds. I am a construction worker on planets where the pull is 6 times Earth normal. Jennifer smiled. I build cities that will last 10,000 years. Why did you come here? Rebecca asked. Because I wanted to meet the woman who started my line. I wanted to ask you something. Jennifer sat down, and despite her size, the movement was graceful. Do you regret what we became? Do you wish we had stayed as you were? Rebecca looked at this woman who was her blood but also something completely new. I don't know what I feel. You're human, but you're also not. Does that make sense? Perfect sense, Jennifer said. I struggle with it too. Am I the same species as you? Legally, yes. Genetically, mostly. But functionally? I would die on Earth without life support. The gravity is too light. The air pressure too low. My body needs what my world gives it. She paused. But I read your books. I study first-age history. I know the stories Emma told about you before she died. You're my ancestor. That matters to me. Then why did humanity change so much? Rebecca asked. Why not stay as we were? Because staying the same would have meant staying limited, Jennifer said. Each world demanded different things. Mars needed people who could handle the radiation. Europa needed water breathers. The heavy gravity worlds needed people like me. We could have used technology to survive, living in protective suits forever. Or we could adapt. Become part of our new homes. She leaned forward. Humanity didn't abandon what it was, Commander. It grew. Like a tree grows branches. The trunk is still there, still human. But the branches reach in different directions. Rebecca thought about that for a long time after Jennifer left. The arguments in the crew quarters grew worse. Michael Peters gave a speech in the mess hall, his voice carrying over the shouting. Our knowledge has value exactly as we are. We remember things they've forgotten. Real things. The fear of not knowing if we'd survive. The hope that pushed us forward. The actual texture of first-age life. If we change, that's gone forever. Emma Clark stood on a table to be heard. And if we don't change, we're trapped. Forever limited. They're offering us centuries of life. They're offering us the ability to understand technology that looks like magic to us. Why would we refuse that? David Cooper's group met in the cargo bay, and their anger was different. Darker. They want to control us, he said to the 100 people gathered around him. Update us or preserve us like specimens in a museum. Neither choice gives us real freedom. We need our own world. Our own future. Away from all of this. Rebecca listened to all of them. She visited Michael's group and heard their passion for preservation. She sat with Emma's group and felt their hunger for the future. She stood in the back of David's meetings and understood their need for independence. On the 6th day, she met with her senior staff. Thomas, Helen, Michael, David, and Emma all sat around the table in her quarters. They had been friends once. Now they could barely look at each other. We're dividing, Rebecca said. And that's okay. How is it okay? Emma asked. We came here as one crew. One family. We came here as 8,000 individuals who happened to be on the same ship, Rebecca corrected. We were united by a mission. That mission is over. Now we have to choose what comes next. And we don't all want the same thing. So we split up, Thomas said quietly. Some stay. Some update. Some leave. Yes, Rebecca said. And we do it with respect. We do it remembering that all 3 choices are valid. Michael looked at her carefully. Which are you choosing? Rebecca took a deep breath. Independence. I'm going to New Genesis. I want to build something new that honors where we came from without being trapped by it. I want to use modern tools but make our own decisions. I want to see what humans can create when they're not trying to preserve the past or race into the future. I'm coming with you, David said immediately. So am I, added Helen and Thomas together. Everyone looked at Emma. She was crying. I can't, she whispered. I want to see everything. I want to live long enough to understand this impossible galaxy. I want to be part of it, not separate from it. Rebecca stood and hugged her. Then do that. Live for centuries. See 10,000 worlds. Learn everything. And maybe, someday, come visit us on New Genesis and tell us stories. The vote came the next morning. Guardian Patricia read the results to the assembled crew. 3,000 for updating. 2,000 for Earth. 3,000 for independence. The days that followed were full of goodbyes. Rebecca stood with Michael Peters, who had chosen Earth, and held his hands. Record everything, she said. Every story. Every memory. Don't let the first age become just archaeology. I promise, he said. And you build something worth remembering. She watched Emma board a shuttle to the genetic modification centers. She watched Michael and 2,000 others descend to Earth where they would become living teachers. She watched her crew of 8,000 become 3 separate groups, each heading toward different futures. On the last night, Rebecca stood alone in the observation dome, looking down at Earth. It was green and peaceful and sacred. Beautiful in its preservation. But it wasn't hers anymore. Tomorrow, she would board a colony ship with 3,000 others. They would travel to New Genesis, a world no human had ever touched. They would build cities and farms and lives. They would have children who would never know Earth except as a story. And that was okay. Because humanity's real achievement wasn't conquering the galaxy. It was building a civilization that let them choose who they wanted to become. 6 months after leaving Earth, Rebecca stood on soil that had never felt a human footstep. The sky above New Genesis burned amber in the morning light, and 2 small moons hung visible even in daylight. Behind her, the colony ship Second Dawn sat silent in the valley, its hull still warm from atmospheric entry. 3,000 people spread across the landing site, staring at their new home with wonder and fear. Some were crying. Others laughed. A few just stood frozen, unable to process that this was real. It's beautiful, Helen whispered beside Rebecca. And it's ours. The planet was Earth-like enough to breathe without masks, warm enough to survive without heated suits, but alien enough to feel new. The grass was purple. The trees had silver bark and leaves that chimed softly in the wind. In the distance, mountains rose like broken teeth against the amber sky. Where do we start? Thomas asked. He held a datapad loaded with construction plans, agricultural schedules, and supply manifests. The Galactic Assembly had given them everything they needed. Fusion generators for power. Fabricators to build structures. Seeds for crops. Medical equipment. Educational archives. Tools both ancient and modern. We start with homes, Rebecca said. Then farms. Then we figure out the rest. The first month was backbreaking work. They used modern fabricators to create building materials, but they assembled everything with their own hands. David Cooper insisted on it. If we let machines do everything, we might as well have stayed with them. We need to build this ourselves. We need to feel it. The settlement grew slowly. Simple homes at first, arranged in a circle around a central plaza. Then larger buildings. A medical center. A school. Greenhouses for the earth crops that struggled in New Genesis soil. They named it New Cambridge, after the university where many of the crew had trained centuries ago. Children played in the purple grass. The first generation born on the journey were young adults now, and they took to the new world with easy joy. To them, this wasn't exile. It was adventure. But not everyone was happy. Arguments broke out about how much technology to use. Some wanted to embrace every tool the assembly had given them. Others wanted to live simpler, using only what they could build and understand themselves. We need balance, Rebecca said during a town meeting in the unfinished plaza. We use the tools that help us survive and thrive. But we don't become dependent on technology we don't understand. We learn. We build. We grow. Messages began arriving from Earth. Michael Peters sent regular updates, his face appearing on the communication screen in Rebecca's small office. He stood in a rebuilt university on the shores of the Thames, teaching first-age history to pilgrims from across the galaxy. The testimonial project is going well, he said during one transmission. We're recording every memory from the 2,000 who stayed. Every story about Earth before the preservation. Every detail of the expansion era. Your choice to leave, Rebecca, it's already becoming legend. They call you the second founders. Rebecca smiled tiredly. We're just people trying to survive on a new world. That's what all founders say, Michael replied. How are things on New Genesis? Hard. Good. Strange. Rebecca looked out her window at the growing settlement. We had our first birth last week. A girl. Her parents named her Dawn. She's the first human born on this planet. That feels important somehow. It is important, Michael said. You're not just settling a world, Rebecca. You're proving something. That humans can still be pioneers. That we don't have to choose between preserving the past or racing into the future. We can do something else entirely. Another message came from Emma Clark. She had completed her updating and now worked on a research station orbiting a black hole. The modifications had changed her dramatically. Her skin had a faint metallic sheen. Her eyes glowed softly. She would live for centuries now, perhaps millennia. I don't regret it, Emma said, her enhanced voice strange through the speakers. I'm learning things I never dreamed possible. I can see wavelengths of light you can't imagine. I can process information faster than any computer we had on the Prometheus Dawn. But Rebecca. She paused. Sometimes I miss being simple. Does that make sense? Perfect sense, Rebecca replied. I miss it too sometimes. The simplicity of just being human without all these impossible choices. Are you happy there? Emma asked. Rebecca thought carefully before answering. I'm building something. That makes me happy. Whether it succeeds or fails, at least it's ours. 3 months later, Ambassador William visited New Genesis. His ship descended gracefully into the plaza, now finished with stone paths and a fountain. He walked through the settlement, his opalescent face showing approval. You've done well, he said. The assembly is impressed. We don't need their approval, David said sharply. No, William agreed. You don't. But you have it anyway. He turned to Rebecca. There's news. We've detected signals from 2 of the other colony ships. They're returning to the Sol system. When they arrive, they'll face the same choices you did. Rebecca felt her heart clench. When? 5 years. Maybe 10. The signals are weak, but they're coming. William smiled. We wanted you to know. Michael Peters on Earth will greet them. Emma Clark has volunteered to help explain the updating process. And we will tell them about you. About New Genesis. About the third choice. After William left, Rebecca called a town meeting. 3,000 people gathered in the plaza as the amber sun set and the twin moons rose. She told them about the other ships. About the people who would soon face the same impossible decisions. We need to show them it can work, she said. Not by being perfect. Just by surviving. By building something real. By proving that humans can still choose their own path. That night, she climbed a hill outside New Cambridge and looked up at the alien stars. Somewhere out there, Earth turned green and sacred. Somewhere, Michael taught pilgrims about the first age. Somewhere, Emma learned the secrets of the universe with her enhanced mind. And here, on New Genesis, 3,000 people were building a future that honored both the past they came from and the possibilities ahead. A message chimed on her communicator. It was from Thomas. Commander, you need to see this. The agricultural team found something in the northern valley. Rebecca made her way through the dark streets, now lit by soft bioluminescent lamps they'd cultivated from native fungi. The agricultural center buzzed with excitement. Look, Thomas said, pointing to a microscope display. The purple grass. We've been studying it. It's not just compatible with Earth crops. It actually helps them grow. Nitrogen fixation beyond anything we've seen. If we can cultivate this properly, we could have harvest 3 times what we expected. Rebecca looked at the alien cells glowing on the screen. New Genesis is helping us. Or we're learning to work with it instead of against it, Helen said. Either way, we're going to make it. 6 months became a year. New Cambridge grew. Children played in the streets. Farms spread across the valleys. They built an observatory to study the alien sky. They established a council to govern themselves. They argued and compromised and slowly learned to live together. Rebecca stood at the edge of the settlement on the anniversary of their landing, watching the sun set amber and beautiful. In her hand, she held a letter she would send to Earth, to Michael and the 2,000 who had stayed. We survived our first year, she wrote. It wasn't easy. We made mistakes. We argued about everything. But we're still here. Still building. Still human, in all the ways that matter. When the other ships come home, tell them about us. Tell them there's a third way. Tell them that 12,000 years after humanity first reached for the stars, We're still learning to be pioneers. She looked back at New Cambridge, at the lights glowing in windows, at the smoke rising from dinner fires, at the sound of laughter carried on the wind. They had left Earth as failures. They had returned as legends. They had been offered godhood or preservation or independence. They had chosen to be human. Complicated, struggling, building, hoping human. And on a world beneath an amber sky, that was enough. Far above, in the alien stars, signals traveled through the dark. Other ships were coming home. Other crews would soon face impossible choices. And when they did, somewhere in the galaxy's records, they would find the story of New Genesis. The story of 3,000 people who refused to be gods or relics, and instead chose to be something harder. They chose to be themselves.